It is live, baby.
Live, baby.
How you doing?
What? I'm good, Doc. How are you?
Doing well. So what are we going
What's
to
the
talk about
temperature?
today?
You got t-shirt weather over there.
Yeah, it ebbs and flows. It's probably 50 right now, maybe 53.
Okay.
I'll take
I'm making. Go ahead.
I mean, it's all about the wind for me. So as long as it's not windy, I mean, I can go out at 40. When it's windy, even at like 70, it's a cold breeze. It's like I gotta layer up.
I got you. It's going to be. I think it's like high 40s here today. So it's Traeger permissible weather. I'm making salty chicken.
Oh, that's beautiful. Did you brine it for a while?
Yeah, I didn't. Well, I called you last night at pretty late my time. Well, like 6. I say pretty late, like 6:30 my time. So it was like 9:30 your time to ask you what your brine was like. But I did half a cup of the red bean salt, half a cup of coconut sugar. Is that not enough? Am I in trouble?
I think the recipe for a full on bird, about let's call it 3.5, 4 pounds, or 3 to 4 pounds, is 1 cup of sugar and half a cup of salt. Ooh. Although I usually do, probably 2/3 of a cup of sugar and add a little bit more salt. Although the very last time my daughter said it was too salty. So it also depends on the size of the pot that you put it in. So if it's a smaller pot, it's gonna absorb more. The less water there is,
Yeah, it's like a pretty tight fitting pot. So there's not, the bird is like the same size as the pot, but it's a small bird. So
are you doing 24 hours?
Or slightly less.
A bit less, yeah. So
I put in last night like 7.
I usually do 48 hours, but the smaller the pot, the less time you need for it. If I do it in a big pot, I will do 48 hours. If I do it in a smaller one, I'll do like 24, maybe a little bit more than that.
All right. And we also have a brisket that's like a 3-day project over here that you encouraged my wife to do. So, but it's a huge brisket. Now I'm looking at it in the fridge. It takes up like a whole shelf of our fridge.
How many pounds?
No idea. I mean, nothing's weighed. We get it from the farmer. It's just wrapped up,
You should weigh just for the quantities of, just for like your idea of time to cook it and such.
I'm sure my wife did. I'm just, I don't know.
She's on top of it. I've seen the last recipe that she created with the short ribs. They looked absolutely amazing.
Yeah, that sauce that she made. I don't know if it's an Israeli thing, but I think it's like shug, like SCHUG. Have you heard of this?
That's what my wife calls it, shug. It's pronounced schug. Yeah, it's of course I know it. I've had it millions of times. This is like the quintessential Israeli hot sauce. It's absolutely amazing.
It's like the Israeli version of chimichurri, is how I look at it.
Yeah, and it comes in different. What do we call it? Different strengths in terms of how hot it is. If it's green, it's red.
Yeah. So she made this batch of it, and she said like, you put a tablespoon on your short ribs, and she had like a big Tupperware of it, maybe like 3 cups, and I ate a lot of that. I was putting like a tablespoon per bite of short ribs. It was really, really good. Just like fresh, spicy. I
love that.
And on like a slow cooked meat, like it's kind of like. It's just a really nice contrast.
Yeah, I have the seasoning ready to go here, and then I use it for all kinds of things. It's delicious.
Dude, it's great. All right, you want to dive in? Go ahead.
Yeah. So today, what do we got today? I have, I've been reading this book over here, Healing with DMSO from Dr. Amandha Vollmer, and I've spoken about DMSO to you a bunch of times and on the podcast briefly. But I really took a deep dive as part of like wanting to, tell you more about it in our audience. So that's going to be my contribution for today's conversation.
And Amandha Vollmer is like the DMSO woman, right?
Yeah, she's definitely one of the leading experts. This is one of the things that she, is known for, and she's done kind of a PhD on it.
Wow.
But not really a PhD, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say in most cases. In a lot of cases, your DIY PhD is more valuable than an actual PhD. I mean, I trust a lot of your advice on certain topics from your your self-exploration more so than the formally trained.
What's interesting is that she's done. She got it, and I'll get into it. I want to hear about what you are going to be educating me on today in our audience. This is part of the new format we're going to do. We're going to take every podcast and educate one another on one topic, maybe two max from each person. And so that way we can deliver the audience a more, what would we call this?
It's more concise. It's more, you know what you're getting into. And I think we should probably talk about what our topics are right away. So if someone's listening and they're like, hey, I don't give a shit about DMSO or Matt's topic of shipping work, I can save myself and move on to another, to be respectful of everyone's time. And that way people can vet out whether it's of interest to them or not. With that, I am reading, mine's going to be more of a discussion between you and I want to hear your thoughts on it. I'm still working very slowly through The Practice, Seth Godin's newest or latest book. And you could read the whole thing in 3 hours if you wanted to, but it's very thought-provoking. So I'm going through it quite slowly. And I'm also doing something new with reading now. I've been doing it for the past couple of weeks, where in the morning I'm reading something that's more like actionable, stimulating, maybe like something around development or health or something like that. So The Practice is kind of my morning reading. And in the evenings, I'm reading something that's more entertaining, but still kind of not necessarily like fiction or something, though. It's typically like right now I'm reading this book called The Wayfinders, and it's about how like hunter-gatherer societies, indigenous wisdom should be like utilized in the modern world. It talks about, a lot of the tribes in Polynesia and stuff like that. Super, super cool. But, it's not necessarily actionable. I'm not taking a ton of practices away from it. I'm just more learning about how rad they are and how soft we are.
That's awesome.
So I can go first if you want.
Yeah, absolutely. Jump in.
Okay. So The Practice. I first heard Seth Godin doesn't do much media at all. He writes a blog every day, but he is on Tim Ferriss's podcast every so often. I think he's probably been on 3 or 4 times. His most recent episode is on his latest book, The Practice, which is about shipping creative work. And it's something that resonates with me in particular because, and I think a lot of people, we have these ideas, these projects that live in Trello or in our journal or on a whiteboard, and they never get shipped. They never get fully done. And I think that comes from, and Seth argues it comes from a lot of places. One is we don't ship because we don't know that it's going to work. We want some assurance that, hey, I'm going to, make this musical piece, or I'm going to launch this business, or I'm going to write this code or build this product, and it's going to work. And Seth's argument is that it doesn't need to work. It's the practice. The practice is doing your work that you're called to do and shipping it. And if it doesn't work, then you do more work and ship, and you continually are shipping and learning from shipping. And that's the practice. That's what makes you feel whole. That's where the fulfillment comes. That's where the meaning is doing the work. It's not about the work being successful. So, and I've noticed this, and even you and I have a friend, who I was with in town last weekend, and he has a big audience, a couple 100,000 newsletter subscribers, and even he struggles with that last, he can get 80% of his newsletter done, but that last, like 20% is what prevents him from keeping it a regular newsletter. And he said, it's hard. And I challenged him with a lot of the stuff from Seth's book and said, hey, it's about shipping. It's about, being, and I'm not saying spam your mail list or the internet with all your shitty rough drafts, right? But if you get to the point where you've, like, I'll do this sometimes with, I have a project that I'm working on, and we were going back and forth on naming it, and the name doesn't matter. And I noticed it was like an hour and a half of looking at available domains and figuring it out. And it got to the point where it's like, it doesn't matter. The getting this right is less important than getting it done. And so we picked something in 30 seconds and shipped it and filled out the LLC paperwork, and it's like, it's done, right? So what I'm curious, you are particularly good at shipping work. And I think it's because you're so task oriented. And I'm projecting on you, so you could tell me I'm wrong. That's fine. But I've noticed if I wanted to say, start a podcast or launch a new business project or whatever it is, I think I get caught up in looking at, hey, there's 1,000 little pieces here. And I end up never shipping the one big product, or it takes me a really long time to ship the thing, to launch it. And I think you're really good at breaking it down into a bunch of tasks and say, here's the 10 tasks that I need in order to get it done. And Benny, come. Sorry, Benny's barking at the Amazon people. You're good at breaking it down into these tasks and doing all of those 10 things, because a project is really, all the mini projects. It's just a culmination of all the mini pieces of work. So what has been your, especially lately with, your brand and your store and, your podcast and your newsletter, you've shipped a lot of stuff in the past. How long has it been?
I would say like 45 days.
Yeah. And you just committed to doing it, and you've done it. And I don't know if you want to say this. What percentage satisfied are you with it? Is it like 100% perfect? Or what are you,
no.
What's your grade you're shipping at?
Well, you encouraged me to ship. I was stalling for a few months because I was on kind of the more perfectionist mode, and a lot of times, I'd like to deliver a product that I'm very happy with, and it's my 100%, right? So I've been, I would say, settling, or rather than settling, I've been choosing to deliver and ship more often and more quickly at 80-85%. And I'm very satisfied that I'm shipping. I've also shipped even a response to somebody who I don't know personally, and it's my friend's wife, who had a few questions about vitamin D and vitamin B and about just supplementation. And I decided to write a response right away, meaning within 24 hours. And I wrote her something that was, once again, my 85%. And she was super stoked to get it. And that was another confirmation. It's the timeliness of things is very important. And a lot of times the 85% that I'm delivering, or the 80% that I'm delivering, is what, first, the person does not know what's my 100%. Two, is enough, perhaps even more than enough, and the timeliness of that. So it answers really what people are looking for. I like to do the extra work. I know you like to do the extra work. It sounds like your friend that was in town. We're looking really at all these details that people may not even notice, and also maybe their subconscious notice, but it's a lot of times it's extra stuff that is not making the difference. What makes the difference is the meat, and I think 80% is where it's at.
And I would argue, after looking at all of the things that you've shipped, at 85%, let's call it, it looks like 95% or 100. It looks like full work to me, and I think the ego wants to judge yourself. And when you think that you're, really tweaking it and getting to 100, you might have, already been at 95 and tweaked it down to 90. Like there's a kind of an overcorrection that might have happened.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I agree. It was the same thing when I created a fasting guide, an extended fast guide for the Men of Integrity community. And I got accolades that, was very comprehensive and such. And I felt like that one specifically was like my, I would say like 65 to 70%. But it was very important to deliver at a certain deadline. I think I talked about it on this podcast. We were supposed to collaborate on it. You threw out your back at the time, and I was like, all right, I'm just going to have to put up. And you have a lot of the research and knowledge skills on it. So I was kind of relying on you to do the heavy lifting in there and me more of the organizing. So, but I dove in, and you know what? It served at least a dozen people to do an extended fast and feel good about it and feel safe, and be able to go through an extended fast, a 5-day water fast, with energy and an ability to get through it, beyond the community support and mental. So it was cool. It was really cool.
I think the big takeaway here with regard to you is you're a horrible judge of what 100% of your work is. Because you just need to be launching 75s out there, and you're going to be doing great.
I do, and it goes. It's a lesson that I've taken deeply. Yeah, I'm not saying that I apply it all the time. I do, procrastinate or stall on things because I do want them to do them a bit more. In some ways, just more well-rounded way. But yeah, I've been in this, especially in the past 45, especially past 30 days. I've been just delivering. And to your question on, kind of how am I able to get the momentum to get it done more quickly and take a project, is that I do the chunking method. I look into what needs to get done. I put it into very small tasks, and then I prioritize those tasks. And I get very big satisfaction from checking things off my list. And every day I focus on.
Where's your list? Where are you do Post-it notes? How do you? I want to know, like, tactically.
I used to do Post-it notes, and now I do actually have two lists that are overlapping. Some of them have sometimes more than the other. I do one of them in a note on my phone. That's kind of my daily or weekly tasks, but definitely there's going to be the daily. So there's going to be the date at the top. It says daily to-dos. And the top is the most important things that I'm going to focus on for the day. If I get the top 3 things done for the day, and I try to make them realistically doable, and I may shuffle things around, then I feel good about myself. And I feel good about progress in that way. I feel accomplished. I feel like I'm doing my work in the world in terms of my purpose, and I'm gifting the world my gifts. And below that, it will be a few more tasks that are, if I get to them, great, but otherwise they're for the near term, for the next few days, for the week. And then I have a bigger list and, all kinds of future stuff in Taskade. So that's taskade.com. So that's where I keep, more stuff. But the phone is more accessible if I want to write something down. Sometimes I don't get it to Taskade until then. I just get it done quickly. So I mostly take just in the iPhone note taker, and I just put those little circles that you can check off. Yeah, there's bubbles.
Damn.
So yeah, I've been doing that, and I've been tracking down, and sometimes I put at the top of that something that I'm also have in another place. I have a habit tracker from iPhone. And I will put, since I have a new habit of reading every morning for 20 minutes minimum, I put it at the top. So I put reading 20 minutes, and then I put KOT, which stands for knees over toes. So I make sure that I get those things done before I get the other tasks done. So I'm getting my reading and I'm getting my workout done before I get into the workday. Because a lot of times I'm eager to get stuff done for work, for my brand, respond to somebody about a question they have to provide value in that way. And then it's been like 2 hours and I haven't trained yet, or I haven't done any reading that I love doing. And it's, a form of self-care for myself. And so I've been putting those at the top of the list. And then, so those two have been there for the past, I would say 2 weeks. And then I have the 3 things to get done for the day in terms of tasks. And I try to keep them small. I would say, the longest one that I had the other day was like 90 minutes. That's like a bigger task.
Okay. Yeah, you've been on fire with this lately. You've just kind of set out the things that you need to do and been checking them off, and it's been really impressive. And I know you've mentioned that you're prioritizing shipping over perfection, and I don't notice. It doesn't look like, he got it out there. This is a B+ product. It's not his best work, but it all looks great. And the fact that it's out there, and I'm glad that you said one last thing around sharing your gifts, because this is another big argument that Seth makes in the book. I would say if the TLDR is do your work for the sake of doing your work without the guarantee that it's going to be successful, and ship it because it's selfish not to. There's someone out there that you can benefit, that you can impact, who needs to see your work, and you not shipping it, you not sharing it, you not putting it out to the world is depriving someone of that.
Like that.
Yeah. So it's not only an act of doing your work because it's meaningful and it's what you're supposed to do, but it's also an act of generosity. It truly is giving to the world, and it doesn't have to reach 100,000 people. I'm sure the handful of people that had really great benefits in the MOI community from your fasting guide that you said was, what'd you say, a 70%? I mean, I thought, even I messaged you when I saw it. You're like, oh, I'm going to put something together, just so everyone has at least like a wireframe to work from. And I thought, holy shit, man, this is really great. This is a lot. This is like as comprehensive of a fasting guide as I've seen.
It was good. I'm very happy with the results. I still think about it and I'm like, damn, there's a good amount of information that I want to add there,
Yeah.
And then
it's a guide, not a book.
Correct. And it's something, a lot of times it's about, as you're saying, it's shipping, and I can always make a version 2.0 and whatnot. And that's the one community that I've been dedicated on delivering. There are just under 20 men in this community, and it makes a big impact. In my opinion, I take great pleasure in impacting, say, 20 men, especially the ripple effect of their families and their working, their communities, and their workspace or working communities and whatnot. So I think I take great pleasure in impacting 20 men, especially for 10 men, 2 people. I take great pleasure in making a positive impact and sharing something that can be beneficial to somebody.
Yeah, no, you're doing great with that. And I think, the one thing I would challenge, I guess, our listeners on is, one, you can read Seth's book in a very short period of time. So even if you don't go through it as slowly and, ponder every little piece of it, even if you just kind of whip through it, I think it's very impactful, very thought-provoking, worth a few hours of time. And I'm just, I encourage people, what is the work that you are supposed to be doing? And this could be in addition to your job. It doesn't have to be your career or whatever, but the thing that you're supposed to put out there, the thing you're supposed to share. And why aren't you sharing it and share it?
Why don't we take the opportunity for you to share some of the things you've implemented in the past few weeks from the practice, as inspiration from the practice is getting kind of the fire in your ass to share your work with the world.
Well, thanks for calling me out. I appreciate that. So as you know, I've had a few other projects going on that have been like very admin intensive. Let's say I've just had a lot of logistics to get sorted out over the course of a relatively short period of time. So I prioritize that. But the one thing that I'm taking away from you and the book is I really have to define the goal, which for me, I'm going to be launching a podcast, and I can share more about that later. But there's all these overwhelming, 100 little steps to do that. And I thought, okay, so if the goal is to launch a podcast, what are the 10 steps that I need to do in order to ship it? And then prioritize those from 1 to 10, and then do number 1, and then do number 2, nice. And then do number 3. And it's not like I'm going to have a podcast at the end of today, but after I do steps 1 through 10, I will. And I think it's really as much, it's about organization and just discipline and setting yourself up for success. Like just find the destination, create the path, and then follow the steps, because it's not really rocket science. And I think the quality of the podcast is then it's an iteration on, I think 0 to 1 is the biggest piece. 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6. That's an iteration. That's after you've already shipped, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what I've been. Again, I think I'm running the risk of not shipping by wireframing what the path is going to look like. But I'll send you some messages later on. I have some commitments I'm going to make, and I'll let you hold my feet to the fire.
It's beautiful. It reminds me, I had a conversation with another new friend, I will say, from one of the courses that I'm taking, and he's in his early 60s, and he's been talking about a bunch of blockages that he had in terms of sharing his gift with the world. He has a great gift of teaching people how to get into deep presence, like Zen. He's done like years on years of Zen meditation practices, and he said, for like 14 hours per day, like doing Zen meditations. And I experienced in within like seconds his work, it was just doing his magic on me. I'm like, whoa, this is powerful. And he told me that he shared it with the world before, but every time he kind of gets into a block and stops, and was able to give him some little fire in his ass, and talk about affirmations and commitments. And he's 6 hours ahead of me in terms of time zone. He's in the Netherlands, so I was pleased to see that later on that evening he made his affirmation, sent me a voice note, and got it happening. So I think there's some sort of momentum and motivation happening in this beginning of 2023.
I agree. Well, I'm most interested in learning about DMSO because I bought a little DMSO roller ball when I heard Steve Maxwell on a Joe Rogan podcast back when Joe Rogan had the JRE actual podcast app on iOS.
Really?
It's like a little, the icon looked like a little, like a radio. And I was in college at the time. And I remember listening to Steve Maxwell talk about DMSO. I think it's dimethyl sulfoxide. Is that what it stands for?
Yes. Let me kind of.
I don't know if that's even important.
Dimethyl sulfoxide. Well, it's a type of sulfur, And
they used it. So and I had this ankle injury that's been going on for a long time. So I bought this stuff and I would roll it on my ankle. I remember thinking, oh, this is legit, but it didn't look like a marketable product, the one that I had. So I think it lost some credibility in my mind at the time, which now I'm almost looking for things that have worse marketing, but that's a digression. But I know that you've been experimenting with it and starting to understand how powerful it is. And I want to know what I should be using it for.
Yes, one part of us doing this new format of the show and being more concise and trying to deliver also more value to our listeners. I've taken a good amount of notes that I have in front of me right now, and from the book from Amandha Vollmer. That's the one that I've learned about it most. I first learned about it from my friends at Primal Hacker, Thaddeus Owen and Heidi Stein, and now. I just took the deeper dive. So at first I got the Zen magnesium spray from, it's called DMSO. I think it's DMSO.Store, which is an online store that Amandha Vollmer, who's based in Canada, has. And it's a 50%. So she combined 50% magnesium, and I don't know which type of magnesium, with 50% DMSO, super pure. The purity that you're looking for, if you're looking for DMSO, is 99.995. That's how pure you want it, based on Amandha Vollmer. So anyway, so I got the spray and I was using it for, especially since I have a rib injury that has been going on this month for 3 years, to kind of relax the body and get deep into the tissues and help with not only, and I'll talk about all kinds of capabilities DMSO has, but detoxification, but also driving the magnesium really deep into the tissues to relax the rib area injury where I have it, and to help with the unwinding process of the body letting go. So eventually my body can find the physical alignment that it's looking for. And I know it's been having trouble doing that.
So wait, Doc, so the DMSO is like the driving mechanism and the magnesium is the relaxing mechanism. So you'd have like deep relaxation.
Yeah, so but on its own, DMSO has a calming effect. It helps with just calming the body. It's a fantastic what do you call it? A vasodilator. So it helps to open up arteries and bring more blood flow and just kind of relaxes the body. It's a diuretic. So it brings, opens up the arteries, brings more blood flow in all kinds of areas in the body, which also help with injuries, right? So if there's an injured area, by driving more blood flow, that helps that area recover, just kind of get more resources. So with Amandha Vollmer calls DMSO and magnesium as BFFs because they work really well together. What's really cool with DMSO that can be combined with water based chemicals, let's say, and alcohol based and such, and oils, is that it doesn't change the chemical structure of those chemicals that it combines with, and somehow it combines with it and help drive those deep into the body. So it goes way beyond the skin into the deep tissues, into the end tissues, and really bring those let's call them supplements or natural substances such as like minerals. When we have, you can use it with minerals. You can use it with. I wrote it down here just so I don't forget. Here it comes. Getting a little stuck in here for a second. Just want to make sure that I'm covering the good stuff in here. So
wait, do you have the one that you're using right now is the magnesium spray, right?
Yeah, so I'll talk about that in just a second. So anyways, I just wanted to tie the loop in here. So it's minerals that she talks about, vitamins, botanicals, and homeopathics that are very beneficial. And she goes like, the sky's the limit. You take one of those, combine it with DMSO, and it depends on how much DMSO you want to do in terms of the ratios. What I've been doing, and that's also her recommendation, is that I got my own magnesium that I enjoy, and then I started combining that, and I bought some pure DMSO, and I've been combining that 50-50. Now, on top of that, what I've been doing, I've been adding Comfrey root. After you introduced me to Comfrey root, I think it's a Comfrey Salve from Kauai Farmacy. Mm-hmm. It's pretty pure, natural substances, beeswax and such, and Comfrey root and some other things in there. But I've been doing the magnesium with the DMSO, and then immediately putting the Comfrey root salve on it, so I can drive really deep into my tissues, the relaxation and the joint building capabilities of Comfrey. So that's how I've been using it mostly. She also has something that is pretty popular that she came up with, and I'm talking about Amandha Vollmer. In the beginning, when she discovered DMSO, is like a hair regrowth formula. As you can see, I'm losing hair. I've been using it actually not too many times, so I haven't seen any results. I've used it like a handful of times. I do have the spray, just kind of like, I'll mess with it. So that's another type. I do want to talk about a bunch of capabilities that are mind-boggling that I've read about in the book, and I'm just going to fire hose a bunch of them. So it has antimicrobial properties. It has the capability to inhibit the growth of bacteria. It reduces inflammation and swelling by affecting inflammation chemicals. It improves the blood supply, as I talked about, to injury areas by dilating blood vessels and reducing blood viscosity, which means pretty much it helps to widen the arteries and also prevents them from constricting, so better blood flow. Interestingly enough, it's a natural non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug, also known as NSAID.
So NSAIDs.
Yes,
that's the reason. Ahead. That's the reason I started using it, because Steve Maxwell. This was his only thing that I remember him saying. He's like, this is basically the model product for ibuprofen. They designed a drug based on DMSO, and I remember at the time I just learned about NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, and thought, like, this is not a good thing for the body. I was following Chris Kresser at the time. He had some, not so pleasant things to say about it. And I had this, this kind of chronic ankle injury that's really swollen and really uncomfortable. And I thought, I could just use this topical DMSO and roll it on. And it did work really well for that.
Apparently it works miracles for injuries, like especially if used right after an injury. I'm going to go through the list here. And then one of the NSAIDs that is very common is aspirin. And as you said, a bunch of doctors and people that are in the know about NSAIDs say that they're dangerous because a bunch of times they're toxic and they can cause problems in the stomach, especially like ulcers and irritation. They can also lead to eye damage, cartilage damage. So this is apparently one of the best ways to use an NSAID in a safe way. So using DMSO for that way. I'm moving on with the list. So it protects against radiation. Amandha Vollmer was saying it would be great if everybody who works in like a hospital or works in like a mining factory or somewhere where there's radiation can use this on a daily basis. And really what it does, it apparently creates this protection while somebody is in a radiating environment. It's much better prevention. It can also helps with therapy and repair after radiation. So X-ray, CT scans, and the list goes on and on. Okay, so it's a muscle relaxant. It has a calming effect on the central nervous system, increases production of white cells and all kinds of other cells that are important for immune system. I'm just jumping into excellent heavy metal detoxifier, and I'm not quoting, binding to aluminum, mercury, cadmium, arsenic, and nickel, and eliminating those through urination and sweat. Now, one thing to note while we talk about sweat is usually when somebody's sweating, they're sweating out toxins. And since DMSO is such a strong driver of other components through the skin, it is not recommended to use it while somebody's sweating. So one of the precautions to do is you only want to use DMSO if your skin is super clean. Whether you just took a shower, if you were sweating profusely, definitely recommend to take a shower. If somebody was working with grease and a mechanic or something, someone is working with all kinds of other chemicals using, let's say, coconut oil, and then really washing and getting all the toxins out. And so that's kind of the first thing to think about is you want the skin to be clean. And also you want to allow enough time for the skin to dry before you put on your clothes. So even putting like an organic T-shirt that has some organic dyes in it, that would still drive those into the deep into the tissues. So I think her rule is about 20 minutes to be with the skin, open and not to put anything on the skin. I usually do like 5 minutes. You can also wipe off excess. So anyway, so it expels toxins from the body. Then with the part of the crazy stuff here with the arteries, and driving well blood flow is that it can stop a stroke and heart attacks. Like that's some crazy situations. If somebody's going through heart attacks or strokes, it is recommended some data there on applying that orally immediately and then topically every 15 minutes to get into a high dose of DMSO in the body to bring really a lot of blood flow to help with that.
Does she give dosage?
So that's the only thing that she does not give dosage for. I think it's based on legal advice, but she does have dosages and all kinds of combinations in here and recipes on how to use it. So the range for usage, and I have the range in here. Let me see. So the range for usage is about 40 to 80% DMSO, and on the lower end is more for animals and like sensitive areas that usually would be from the throat and from the neck and above, like eyes, ears, mouth. And then on the higher end, it will be for thicker skin areas like the soles of the feet, So, there's kind of experimentation with that is essential. For anybody who's going to try DMSO, perhaps inspired from this talk or just heard about it from another source, it's best to try this on a small patch of skin at the beginning to see what kind of reaction you get. If you get a reaction, sometimes there's going to be some redness, some itchiness, some swelling. A lot of times that's from, really opening up the blood vessels, and that's why you see redness. And then there's could be also thickening of the skin if used too much. So, apply a small amount on the skin, perhaps if you have sealed this roller, if you get a spray or whatnot, or a gel. And once you kind of develop a relationship, you may want to be using more over time. I would suggest just starting small in terms of the percentages and then increasing over time and figuring out how this works with the body. Now, there could be, so definitely, as she said here, definitely do not use this on with prescription drugs, as it's going to drive those much more. And then the dosage, would not be correct anymore. Even if you don't use it at the same time as the prescription drug is within the bloodstream, and then you is DMSO, and that brings more blood flow, and then that takes it, deeper into the bloodstream and the tissues. Should not be used with another diuretic, since this is a diuretic on its own. And what else did I want to tell you about in here? There was only one human-related death on record in the 60s in Ireland, a woman who had been on a course of antibiotics and anti-anxiety medication, and she had an anaphylactic reaction. And
she didn't die from the DMSO.
Well, she still took that after having this reaction, like a histamine reaction. She still kept taking it. So Yeah, I mean, but that could be dangerous a bunch of times, as we know, with all kinds of things. Combination of things, dosages. So yeah, on its own, it's very, very safe. And interestingly enough, people that have a reaction to DMSO, and this is for anybody who wants to take note, it's like they see a reaction, they usually have some toxicity in the body. This is bringing out the toxicity. So this is if somebody has some toxicity or some sensitivity to sulfur type compounds, they may want to go really slow and get the toxicity out of the body and then build up. So it's a lot.
So maybe,
yeah, go ahead.
Wait, would your recommendation maybe be take maybe like an HTMA test, a hair tissue mineral analysis test, which is relatively inexpensive. It's a couple $100. And I think the company's Nutritional Analytics, who I ordered mine through, and then you can pay maybe like $100 extra or something like that to sit down with one of their team members, and you go through your results, and they say, "Oh, you got a lot of mercury or copper or whatever," and come up with strategies for getting that out. So maybe you figure out where you're at, you do some kind of detox, maybe that's with the Quicksilver push catch system or whatever your detox of choice is, and then maybe start. It doesn't seem like but you said it's a detoxifier. So would you recommend? What's your takeaway? I know you're not giving
right. So here's the thing. So first thing first, if somebody feels like they don't have a crazy amount of toxicity in their body, or they have this intuition, or if they're not sure, do a small test on perhaps on your arm, on your forearm, or on a big portion of the body that is not very sensitive. So from the neck below, not around sexual organs. And check what's going on. So the legs, arms, perhaps stomach, give it around the stomach a small amount and give it a try. Now, if you don't see a big reaction, I would say start experimenting and increase the dosage, and perhaps now think about combining that. And there's all kinds of use cases that I'm going to dive in here that are oral, like ear, through the ears and such. Even some eye drops. Apparently, it helps heal cataracts like crazy, because cataracts, apparently it's an accumulation of calcium, it kind of builds up in front of the retina. But anyways, so I would start small, even if somebody is not called to do the HDMA test, or they want to spend the money on that, or any other what do we call this, a detox protocol, because this is detoxing on its own. So it helps with expelling metals from the body, and it helps with just detoxifying the body from other toxins through sweat and urination. Now, I would start small, see how it does, and then if all good, continue to use it. You can use it on its own, just pure DMSO will do all kinds of great things, calming the body, bring more blood flow, so in detoxifying the body, and then perhaps play with magnesium. Magnesium is essential for body function. Magnesium, I put it in here. It's necessary to keep the liver active, and the liver, as we know, is one of the best things in the body to process toxins, and a lot of other things. But yeah, so either use it on its own or combine it with something that you take, which I think this is the list that I got stuck on, but it was important to me to mention it. So this was the minerals, vitamins, botanicals, and homeopathics. And most recently, I did not know much about homeopathics, but I've been buying into homeopathics because I've been using them for the past few months. My wife used them, and I see the value of homeopathics. I don't really understand how they're being formed, how they work, but what I've seen is that they work really well. So actually, also from Amandha Vollmer, I followed her on Telegram, and she sent a list that I think I forwarded to you on all kinds of alternatives to allopathic medicines that can be used with homeopathics, and they work better and they're more natural to the body. The body does better with natural substances rather than synthetic ones. So
did you post that on your Telegram channel as well?
I don't think I did. Maybe I did. You should. And also,
my wife was really excited to see it, and she's now buying all of those things. We have like this. We call it like our little hippie pharmacy box, but it's like all of our natural remedies to in place of a medicine cabinet essentially. And she wants to have a list of all these things, and then just put a little label on it that's in place of Tylenol. To use. That's she was great. So stoked to see that.
Yes, I ordered those as well. And I actually see that I did post this. I posted on January 29th, 2023. If anybody wants to scroll up and see in the Yoni Havana channel. If you want to join the Yoni Havana Telegram channel, it's a private channel that you can find a link either in my newsletter or on my website. Go look for a Telegram link and you'll be able to join that. Yeah, so I've been also ordering those, just as you were saying, to have on hand. And I mean, homeopathics happen to be very cheap and effective, apparently, from my own experience, and apparently from a lot of other people. That's why they keep surfacing on the market and have a supply and demand. So yeah, so cool stuff right there. You know,
what would you recommend? What time of a time commitment is? I feel that I shouldn't be always judging books based on the time commitment, but it seems like that book's relatively. How can you hold it up sideways so I can see the thickness?
Tiny.
Oh,
You could read through this book. You know, I've been taking notes on it, so I'm reading a little bit slower and kind of thinking about the compounds and use cases and such. But this is like 2 hours. About 2 hours. And then, one would be able to jump around and really get the meat of this within like 30 to 40 minutes. Just kind of jumping into how to use it, what to look out for in terms of, precautions and whatnot, and then jump into the use cases. I'm really, getting, I'm jumping into tangents as I read this, so I'm able to get a better understanding of all kinds of other things that are mentioned, such as sulfur, So when I see this information, I want to get as much of a well-rounded understanding of what I'm reading so I can bring value to other people that I'll be talking to. So I'm not only looking at information for, my own purpose or my family's purpose. I'm looking like, what are other use cases out in the world that may be applicable to other people that I'm going to be talking to in the future. So that's how I've been taking this information in. And I've been doing, much of a better job of taking notes also in the books that I'm reading, and then doing the commonplace book that we've been talking about. So the practice is to highlight stuff in the book and perhaps take notes, small notes. And then once the book is done, after about a week, go back and take all these notes and write them out either in pen and paper or type them in. So that way you get to really embody the information, and then you can get back to the most important notes to oneself. And I can sometimes connect notes between books as I'm reading about something. And, so now I moved all my notes into Notion so I can do those connections more easily. So
yeah, you made a good point about it's better. You told me this one time, because I get caught up in the numbers. I'm like trying to hammer through, and you say it's better to read like one book, have a full understanding and complete comprehension, and be really able to apply it, than to read, a book a week, 50 books a year or whatever, and just not.
Mm-hmm. That's my take on it. And I remember Naval Ravikant, whom we mentioned on this podcast before. He was the co-founder of Angel List. He said it's better to reread, 100 books over a lifetime than to read, 1,000 that, you kind of glance through and perhaps get some inspiration from, but really embodying and understanding information deeply, I think is very beneficial. Especially if it talks to you. I'll make another recommendation here on reading, is that if you're reading something and you don't feel like finishing the book, or you want to jump around, or it doesn't speak to you, cut it out. So not feeling compelled to, and that goes back again to shipping, not doing the 100% a lot of times is going to benefit somebody to be able to move on to the next thing, rather than kind of getting stuck or taking the time to finish something for the sake of feeling finished. Yep. Anyways, I got to run here to another call. And
yes, sir.
This has been fun. Thank you for educating me and the audience on the practice. I'm looking forward to reading that one myself. I hope the DMSO information was useful to you and the audience. I know I heard a lot of information. So if you're looking for more, you can get Healing with DMSO on Amazon, or I think it's on DMSO.Store. Yep. Amazing resource from Amandha Vollmer. You can also find her on Telegram. I think her channel is called Yum Naturals Emporium. You can look that up. Anyways, and you can see a link to that I shared a post about homeopathics in my channel. So that channel is available to join, the private link on my website and in my newsletter. That's going to be yonihavana.com.
Beautiful. Thanks for the time, Doc. Appreciate it.
Likewise. All right. See you later.
Talk to you soon. Much love.
Peace.
Thanks.
Much love.